That's all right. Morning, cuz.
Good morning, my brother. How you feeling, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good, man. I mean, I'm just on the mend. I'm gonna get some stitches out today. Get a little bit more movement in this elbow, and get going. I mean, it's a big week here. I mean, the schedule's coming out, so nothing's really gonna stop me or slow me down from what I got to do.
Well, I saw you on the beach looking like the Bionic Man,
Yeah.
watching the air show down in Florida.
Yeah. Well, my dad was a pilot. Helicopters, jets, F-15s, you name it. He flew them. So I was always
didn't
around
know that.
planes. Yeah. He was a pilot in the Marine Corps for Boeing, test pilot, FAA. Like he had his license in so many different aircraft. So I see these things and I see these air shows and I go, people. I mean, these pilots, they look like they walked right out of Top Gun. They just they have a special skill. Like it's not easy to become one of those pilots like that. So I got a lot of respect for him. It was good. Good day.
Have you ever been in a fighter jet?
No, I have never been in an F-15. Like the ones that the Thunderbirds were flying the other day, they're just, one seat cockpits, so there's just no room. Now there's some other jets, you could get in, but I have not been in one. I'm not sure that I'm ready for that. Speed of sound, going up into the atmosphere like that, it's not exactly going to feel good in my stomach. I know that.
Yeah, but if there's anybody that can handle it, it's Baldy. All right?
Yeah.
Let's be real. Like, helicopters, are you a helicopter man?
Yeah, big helicopter guy. Bell Jet Ranger, Sikorsky's. I've been on top of rooftops, delivering mail, picking up customers. I've put those birds down on lakes and, landed people down there. I kind of done some heavy lifting. I remember one time we were up in Minnesota. There was a big tornado cloud coming right at us. Had to put that bird down on a farmer's field, run for shelter. Thankfully, nothing happened. I've seen a lot of.
Wait. All right. Before we get into everything, I need more of this story. So tell me the story from the beginning. All right. Like you just can't go, I put the bird down in the field, the tornado, we're running from the tornado cloud. Yeah. You gotta set this up. I need this story.
So my father and three of his buddies from the Marines, they started this company in Minneapolis called Imperial Airways. They're actually out of Lakeville, Minnesota. They had like 3 or 4 helicopters, and they did everything. I mean, they delivered mail. I remember we picked up John Denver at a concert in Ames, Iowa one time. Just whatever it was. I mean, you could book these Bell Jet Rangers for about any occasion. So we were flying from Lakeville to St. Cloud, Minnesota. All right. So St. Cloud's kind of in the middle of the state. Anyways, we're flying to St. Cloud, and it's like probably June or July. We're going, and we know that there's some bad weather up ahead. We just don't know what it's going to look like. So we're like cautious and everything. My dad's not he's everything by the books. But we see a black funnel, like in front of us. I mean, it's impossible to miss what that looks like. There's only one thing that looks like that. And as soon as we saw it, we turned around and we thought we could outrun it. We didn't know how fast it was going. And my dad saw a farmer's field, had a big old, like they had some shelter there and stuff. He's like, let's just put this thing down. Let's just see where this thing goes. Let's don't try to outrun it, whatever. And that's what we did. We put that bird down in some farmer's field up there in central Minnesota. Had a little shelter with some trees and a big old barn and all that kind of stuff. And we just kind of sat it out, let it go by. Yeah.
Did the storm go past you, or what happened?
It didn't go in that direction. It was going in a different direction. And they're very, tornadoes are very specific. I mean, you can tear up one side of the street, and on the other side of the street, there could be no damage. It's a very odd path, and the path of destruction is you just don't know where it's going to land.
No, dude, it was frightening because one went through 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Mullica Hill, where I live in Jersey.
Oh, really?
It was nasty. Like I mean, there's still areas that aren't fully recovered from it. Like,
Oh, for sure.
Oh my! Poor people lost their homes. It was awful, man. It's frightening. That thing is frightening. All right, I got to ask you. There's a lot to discuss here today. So I was talking to a lot of people around the Eagles, and one of the common themes that came up, and even Sirianni himself talked about it, that maybe they need to work harder. All right, like that they didn't work hard enough, right? Like. Really, after they won the Super Bowl, the mini camp, they didn't even get together for mini camp, and training camp is not what training camp was. But hard work. Can you discuss this for a second when it comes to understanding and building for football? And you come from a different school of hard work.
Yeah. Well, they didn't work hard enough, cuz. I mean, you go out there and watch them, maybe in a scrimmage against Cleveland. And, you know, maybe you got some assimilation of in the heat in August last year, like they were getting after it. Okay, a couple days. But there was so many days where it's just a glorified walkthrough. And they're not doing enough. And I understand, look, they got a lot of veterans, you know, Lane and Fletcher and Kelsey. And you want to kind of put those guys on a pitch count. I get that. But I'll never forget this story. And I'm not dodging the story. I just want to tell a story to illuminate what you're talking about, cuz. Yeah. I remember one time I'm down the Baltimore Ravens, and they're having an intra-squad scrimmage. John Madden's got his bus there. It's a big show. It's a Saturday afternoon intra-squad scrimmage, and I go out there for the NFL Network. I'm covering. So I get Ray Lewis and Ed Reed coming up to me, and they're saying to me, Baldy, if you don't tell the world what Harbaugh is doing to us, he's killing us. I go, what do you mean he's killing you? He goes, we're out here 3 hours every day. Our tongues are dragging on the ground. There's Haloti Ngata over there. Like, we're not going to make it through the season if we go through that. I go, well, have you talked to him? He goes, no, but I figure, you know, we got to put some pressure on him from the media. I go, okay, I'll say something, but you need to go in there and talk to Harbaugh yourself. So anyways, I do Ray and Ed a favor. I kind of let them know that this thing is the hardest camp they've been through. They're up there in years. They're worried about, you know, getting through the season. You know what Harbaugh says to him? He said, look, if you guys need to take yourself out of a drill, take yourself out of a drill. He goes, but we got rookies and second-year players that we're going to need in January and December, and we got to get those guys ready. So I'm going to get those guys ready to play. You do what you got to do. You need to take a day off, take the day off. But I'm not going to stop what I'm doing because those guys, we need them. And I never forgot that going, all right, Lane, Fletcher, Kelsey, I get it. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, these guys need work, cuz they need work. And I didn't think they worked hard enough when I saw them, and I'm not saying I'm out there every day. But what happens is you see a lackadaisical effort in games. And one of the reasons why they were a poor tackling team last year, and they were a poor tackling team, is they didn't rally to the ball the way you got to rally to the ball. And I put some examples up during the season, some of them breakdowns. Not enough, though. I mean, you go all the way to the playoff game and just see guys, they just didn't play hard enough. And I think that starts in practice.
Listen, I do too. And you know, I get, now I want you to, speaking of story time, I want you to tell people, because believe me, I'm not saying that they should go back to 1982, right? And Dallas, right? I'm not saying that. But the pendulum sometimes can swing too far. So, but I want just so we understand what real work is. Training camp starting around what, July 8th, 9th, right? And then talk about how many preseason games, what practices were, two-a-days, what they were like. Enlighten people about, because this is the height of work.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, I mean, I was a rookie in 1982. Landry, Tom Landry was our coach. He helped build the roster by signing more free agents than anybody on any team at any level ever. But they found a lot of great players. Rayfield Wright, Cornell Green, Bill Bates, Martune, myself. I mean, we found Drew Pearson. I mean, we found a lot of guys that were free agents because of what he did. So we started. We got to training camp on July 13th. We did all this conditioning tests, and then we started full pads on July 14th. 2 straight weeks, every day, morning and afternoon. We practiced from basically 9 to 11:30 every morning, and we practiced from 2:30 to 5 every afternoon. All right, so we had a break in the middle. So we went 2.5. We conditioned after every morning practice, and we conditioned after every afternoon practice. And we did that for 6 straight weeks, and he never took a day off. We had an inter-squad scrimmage before the preseason game started that went for 3 hours. Then we conditioned after that, and everybody basically collapsed on the field. So what would happen was we would practice before the veterans got there. We thinned the ranks of 110 free agents and 15 draft picks, 125 rookies. We probably thinned it to probably like 60 or 70 rookies by the time the veterans got there. And we were basically the dummy squad for all the vets. So I would line up, and I would take 32 zone blocks against the number 1 defense at left guard. So I got a chance to play against Randy White, Don Smerick, John Dutton, really good players every day. And they would just go to the huddle, look at the card, go do the blocking assignment. And we would go live, or we always in full pads. We never took the pads off. So that's what my day was every day. And then we would do all the individual drills, half-line drills, one-on-one pass rush, team drills, tack, all that stuff. Well, we did that for 6 weeks. Now, back then, guys didn't tear ACLs. We didn't have guys that missed seasons. I mean, by and large, I didn't miss a day of practice until maybe my 4th year in the league, and I had a knee scope. But guys, the conditioning and the hitting condition the body, and we just didn't get the injuries that we see right now. Now, I'm not saying that that's the cure-all, but that's how it was. That's how it was every single year. Now, we always got off to fast starts. 1983, we're 7-0. We're like riding high. We finished poorly. And I think a lot of it was we just did too much too early. But regardless, that wasn't just us. I went to Philadelphia, even when Buddy Ryan left and Kotite came in. I mean, we were still in basically full pads at Westchester for 2.5 hours, every morning, every afternoon, just praying for a day off. That's how it was.
Andy ran a tough camp.
We always scrimmaged the Raiders before we ever got to the preseason games.
Yeah. Andy ran a tough camp. Like, I'll never forget early days of Andy. It was nasty. Like,
I remember up at Lehigh, Trotter taking down Westbrook to the ground on the 5th day of practice on a Saturday, like tackling to the ground. Oh, yeah. Andy still runs a tough camp. Anybody will tell you. You go out there to where they're at right now, and they're down there. They practice down in these fields down this valley. It's hot as hell. There's no breeze, and Andy's got him in full pads. He's not it's not a glorified walkthrough. He's still hitting and tackling and bumping and grinding and conditioning those guys pretty good.
What does that do for you? We talk about, because it's funny. I talk to Spags about that all the time. He's like, building calluses, right? Like, so the tangible. What's tangible about building those calluses?
Well, what's tangible is you can't become a good run blocker unless you run block. I mean, you get all the dummies you want, but you're not moving Jalen Carter off the ball. I mean, if you're, Tyler Steen this year and you're doing one-on-one block, you're not moving Jalen Carter off the ball unless you're blocking Jalen Carter. And you're not getting any better unless you get your pad level down. And so what Spags is saying is, like, okay, you build calluses, but you're building calluses doing fundamentals. There's not enough time for the fundamentals of the game. And so, Jeff Stoutland has figured out that he can't actually work his guys hard enough right now. He's taking every second on the field to work through his steps, get shoulder to shoulder, get foot to foot, work on their combo blocks, knowing how to get to the second level and picking off linebackers. I mean, that stuff is valuable, but you also, the thing that bothers you the most, honestly, when you're in contact is your neck and your hands. And you got to get your neck and your hands, especially if you're in the trenches. You got to get those calluses built up. Your fingers are going to get gnarled. Your elbows are going to get bent. Your neck's going to get you're going to get some stingers, but you got to fight through that stuff. Otherwise, if you're just going full speed in the game, like, your body's not ready for that full speed contact. You just can't go 0 to 100. I don't believe. And I'm all about player safety, because you see guys are wearing the mesh on top of their helmets to try and reduce the collisions. I'm all for all that. But football is a contact sport, and you've got to get contact before you can really go out there and play the game the way it's supposed to be played.
Meat Locker Conversation brought to you by ButcherBox. ButcherBox.com/PHLY to get the meats. The importance of the coordinators, I think we've seen it twice in recent history when it comes to the Eagles. When Doug Peterson lost his coordinators, we saw that the end spiral quickly. We saw last year when, after 2 seasons, Sirianni gets both coordinators poached, we saw a devastating slide. Well, now they got 2 veterans, right? Vic Fangio, a true veteran, who they run a defense that he designed, and then Kell Moore, who's got experience play calling now in 2 other spots. How important were those hires?
Critical, because the games, I think we've talked about this a little bit, but the games are in the hand of the coordinators. Nick's not calling any plays. He might make suggestions, but Kell Moore is going to call the plays. Vic Fangio is going to call the plays. And I'm not saying that Nick's not involved. I mean, he's involved, but these guys are not just calling the games on Sundays or Thursday night, whenever it is, but they're making the adjustments during the games, all right, when things aren't going well, or when the teams are doing things that they weren't expecting. They're adjusting then. But it really starts Monday night when they start putting the game plan together. The coordinators, all right, what are we going to do this week against a Dallas team that wants to run the ball, blah, blah. Like, are we going to be in a base bare front? Like, what's our front this week? I mean, all those things that you start getting ready for when a player comes in and you get the game plan on Wednesday and you're in that team meeting and you're like, this is what it takes to win this game. This is what we're going to emphasize. Like, that's all been established by the coordinators. And last year they had 2 very inexperienced guys. I'm not saying they're not good coaches. Brian Johnson, Sean Desai. I'm not saying they're not good coaches, but that's a lot of responsibility, and it starts there. It starts with the game planning all week long, how it's supposed to look, what we're going to try and do, what our purpose is this week, how do we win this game? And then that filters down to all the assistant coaches and to everybody else that's putting that game plan in place for the weekend. So you look at Vic Fangio. Like I remember when Vic was the defense coordinator for Jim Moore in New Orleans, and he probably had as good a linebacking core, as we've ever seen. Ricky Jackson, and just the Pat Swilling. I mean, they were loaded. The Dome Patrol. But even if you go back to when Vic was, say, the head coach in Denver, like, he got blown out in his 3rd year there. They won 7 games. Wasn't good enough. I get it. But they had the 3rd-ranked defense in football. Like, he built over the course of 3 years, he built a really good defense with not a lot. I mean, Von Miller was there and Justin Simmons was there. He had some guys, but he built the 3rd best defense in football on a team that could just win 7 games.
Yeah, and Kell Moore having experience play calling, I just think that's I think that's a big deal for them. I do, especially going into an offense, going with adding something for Hurts that he needs. Adding Barkley, you got a lot of talent there on that side of the ball, and building in answers for Hurts is going to be key.
Yeah, but Kell Moore, you got to look at his, the track record. I mean, he was a backup quarterback in this league. He was a starter at Boise State, backup quarterback. All right, Doug Peterson, backup quarterback. I mean, you look at some of these players now that are head coaches. D'Amico Ryans, player. Like, Kell Moore comes literally from the playing field where he was a backup quarterback, and he steps in and he starts building his resume to the point where he's a competent play caller. And, he's going to help the quarterback get in, into better plays, out of bad plays. All that stuff, can help, I think, this year. Helping Jalen Hurts with different movements and motions and where the eyes got to go as a quarterback. I mean, you get a quarterback talking to a quarterback. I think it's going to help. I think it should help. I know that Jalen wants to be coached hard. He wants his weaknesses to be addressed. I think Kell Moore has the gravitas to be able to do that with Jalen.
All right, last thing I want to go over with you, brother. So we're talking a lot this morning. I was talking about a kid that I saw, Gavin Mason, 11 years old. He looks like a mini Jim Thome, this kid. Hit 2 bombs yesterday. He's got 14 home runs. He plays 11U baseball. All right? Okay. Like this kid he throws 70 miles an hour. I mean, kid's a stud, right? Like just you see him different, right? There's a story, I don't know if you know it. It was in the Wall Street Journal about a kid that's from this area, all right, Caven Sullivan, who will be playing for Manchester City of the Premier League, right? He's 14, dude. He's got to stay here for 4 years because of child labor laws in England, and then he can go over and play for Man City. And I'm thinking about youth, right? I'm thinking about these these wonderkins. Now, football's different because of the physical nature and your own body, right? Like you just have to mature from a body standpoint. But give me the young talents that you saw, like where you went, oh my God, he's a football prodigy. Is there ever been a young player or young players when it comes to prodigies in football? It's so different because of the physical nature, but I'm curious.
Well, I mean, look, I knew Caleb Williams when he was in high school. He was at Gonzaga High School in D.C. Yeah. Like he was 16 years old when I first met Caleb. I was at a quarterback collective football camp. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, some great coaches were very involved. And we were in Indianapolis. And I put him in the film room, and I just was showing him some Mahomes and Josh Allen, some coverages, how to attack coverages, where the blitz is coming from, where the sight adjust is. Like, he had all that. Like he already knew that stuff. Like it wasn't like he was like he knew it all. He just could verbalize it, and he could talk about it in a way that it wasn't over his head in any way. And then we went out and I watched him throw the football when I guess he was 16, maybe he just turned 17. But I watched him throw the football, and just his release, his weight transfer, things that some quarterbacks like Carson always struggle with because he was just always bigger and stronger than anybody. He never really learned how to throw a football. He just overpowered a football, and it cost him. It cost him in his accuracy, and it really cost him part of his career. But you watch Caleb just throw a football. Like the weight's on the back foot. He's always in position to throw it, no matter where he's at. Like he had all of that. And so I knew then if he was in a combine when he was 16, 17 years old, he'd have thrown it like you would have. Maybe C.J. Stroud had a electric combine performance. I mean, he was outstanding. But, I was around Jeff George, when he was the first pick in the draft. I was there in Indianapolis. Like he threw it at that level. He had that kind of release, that kind of he knew how to throw a football. And you just go, like that guy, it didn't surprise me to see him do what he did in college and become the first pick. None of it surprised me. And in fact, I still stay in touch with him. We still text back and forth a little bit. But none of that surprised me when I saw him.
How about Andrew Luck, Peyton, guys that we had heard of, when they were in high school. Caleb.
Time I saw Andrew Luck, his father was he was the president of the World League of American Football. So he was living in Frankfurt, Oliver Luck. So he was the whole president of the league, and I was over there doing games. I remember seeing Andrew Luck at Waldstadion in Frankfurt throw the football when he was 12. Like he was already a big kid. He was already a big kid. He was already throwing it. His dad was quarterback, all this kind of stuff. So he was always having a ball toss down the field. Now, he was also kicking a soccer ball, and he was playing basketball. He was an all-around athlete. But then I remember seeing the next time I saw him, he was his junior year at Stanford, and I was doing a Stanford UCLA game. And they had a play where they had a throwback to the quarterback. So he's in shotgun. They shotgun the ball. They have a reverse come, and he goes out on the backside, and he catches this pass down the field from the wide receiver. One-handed catch, at 6'5" and 240 pounds. I go, the guy could start a tight end, like a one-handed catch, like just one of those type of phenoms. Wow. And then I would say my junior year at Duke, our last game was always against North Carolina. So LT was playing for North Carolina. He was a senior. And we're down on the goal line. We got first and goal to 2. And I'm playing left guard. I got my man like in the end zone. We should be scoring. We got a good running back, we go 4 tries, we don't gain anything. In fact, we lose a yard. And I'm like, we don't have pictures or video or anything like that. You got to wait till the next day to see LT make 4 straight plays behind the line of scrimmage. He was just LT before he was ever LT.
That's awesome. My brother, I could do it all day. Love it. I get you one more day this week to talk schedule, and we'll get into Baldy's travels. So I'm looking forward to that when the schedule release for everybody's bucket list and everything else. So we love you, buddy. Good luck today at the doctor.
Good to be with you, bud. I'll talk to you later this week after the schedule.
Thanks, pal. The great Baldy.
We all silly like the mayor.